Hello, agentpreneurs, and welcome to episode 62 of the Daily List Report. We've got an incredible episode for you today. So a lot of you are probably thinking when you work with your clients, you're like, hey, look, I'm the hero. I am the hero. I'm going to save the day. I'm going to make sure that they buy their home, they sell their home. I've got this. And what we're here to tell you today is that actually you aren't the hero. I know that sounds weird. What we're talking about today is a book called Story Brand, Building a Story Brand by an author. His name is Donald Miller. And my guest today is going to be a familiar face. She was on with us back when we did our Stand-in Salute Week. She is a Navy veteran. Her name is Mary Maloney. She is the owner of Hometown Realty. And she was recently named in one of Inman's most influential for marketing. So I couldn't think of someone more delightful and more qualified to come on and talk about this because she has a lot of experience with this book and the methodology that they put forward. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Mary on. Mary, say hello to the agentpreneurs of List Reports.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. It's one of my favorite subjects. So I hope everyone has at least one little nugget that they can take away today and implement in their business. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for doing this, Mary. When we met, I don't know, a month ago or whatever it was, I was like, oh, we are kindred spirits. We look at a lot of the same things, and we had a great conversation. I could not wait to have you back on because I think this is going to be extremely powerful for our viewers. So, Mary, what I'm going to do is the first thing is I'm actually bringing up on the screen right now. I'm going to kind of run through this real quick, which is this is sort of the methodology or the flow that this book talks about, right? Donald Miller, basically at a high level, what he says is the arc or the story of a brand kind of loosely follows that of a great movie, right? And so the idea there is that in a movie is you have this imperfect hero, right? You have this character who hasn't yet realized what his or her superpower is, right? And they meet somebody along the way who helps them unlock all of their potential. That is what this is. And the tangible output of going through this exercise is that you actually get to define what your brand is. And Mary's actually going to talk a lot about that in just a moment. But what I want to do, and we're going to anchor the conversation around this, is if you look at the screen, you have a character. That character in this case is your buyer or your seller. It is not you. You are not the hero of this story, right? You are the guide. That character has a problem. That problem is, hey, I don't know how to buy a house. I don't know how to sell a house. I know what I want the outcome to be, but I don't know what the process looks like. Followed by meets a guide who understands their fears. That's you. The guide gives them a plan, calls them to action, and the result here is the transformation of that character. They now are a successful homeowner, or they successfully sold their house. So this is the journey that we're going to go through. And where I want to start here, Mary, is I kind of want to talk with you for a second about, well, this book means a lot to you, right? I mean, you just told me you read this book every year. So why don't you talk a little bit about what this book means to you, how you found it, and how you implement this in your daily life. And then we'll go into the actual story brand flow.
So I think that's one of the biggest struggles that a lot of realtors have is marketing. Realtors are great salespeople, right? A lot of times they're not great marketers, they're not great business people, but they're great salespeople. And so in traveling and coaching and all of these things, I come from a marketing background. But when I went out as an independent and started Hometown Realty, I really knew that our position in the marketplace was going to have to be controlled by our narrative. And what did we want people to know about us as people, about us as a company, and about us as a brand? Because branding and call to action are two very different things, right? Kellogg's, who I was blessed to work with, they have a particular brand in the marketplace. The call to action may be a coupon or a discount or a new cereal that fulfills a need. So in developing our brand, someone recommended this book to me, and the foundation of this book is so phenomenal. It's very simple. It's a very simple formula to follow, but it is so important that I do listen. I have this book on Audible on my phone or in the cloud or wherever it exists. And I literally, this is on my calendar to do every single year. So as we're looking at the market, our company, our growth, what the message that we want to talk about, because for me, marketing is about campaigns. Marketing is not about a one-off postcard that you put out that you sold a house. Marketing is about campaigns and the different mediums and media that you are going to use in fulfilling that campaign. When we recently made the switch to be brokered by EXP, for example, that campaign was about us moving to EXP, but it was also about what did that mean for the consumer, right? And so our campaign ended up being smart move, good people. Because we made a smart move, and EXP are really great people. And there's a lot to benefit us as agents, but also there is benefit to our client. And then that campaign also resonates with our consumers because working with us is a smart move and we're good people. So when you think about campaigns in your business, following this basic formula is so critical that I go back and I listen to this book every single year. And some chapters I'll listen to 2 and 3 times, because as we grow in our business, it depends on what filter you're listening through, right? Sometimes you hear something that maybe didn't resonate with you the first time that you heard it, but when you go back and you listen to something over and over again, you always get something new out of the conversation or the book, or a coaching video that you watch, because you're listening through a different filter this time, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So that's why I go back and listen to it every single year. It's so important.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, I mean, it's something that not a lot of people do, but when you find something that resonates, reading it over and over again absolutely allows you to pull out some of the nuance that you may have otherwise missed. So, Mary, let's sort of start this journey here, right, with our viewers today. So, the very beginning of this story brand, and by the way, at the end of this, we'll pull this up. It's called mystorybrand.com. It's actually a free tool. There's paid options and all that. There's actually a free tool you can use to go through this exercise. It's extremely useful. But the beginning of this, and I have the flow up on screen right now, is that, we have a character, right? And that character is your buyer or your seller. And that character has a problem, right? So if we were to just pick sort of one use case, maybe we pick a home buyer, for example, right? That home buyer has a problem. And I want you to talk a little bit about this, from your perspective, Mary. As we've looked into this as a company, one of the biggest problems that we see is uncertainty, right? As a buyer, there's a lot of uncertainty in that process. But this is going to lead into the next point, which speaks to empathy. But talk a little bit about sort of, the character in this case and the problems that they have and how you go about understanding them.
So in marketing, great marketing is nothing other than storytelling. Yes. And, I think people, especially realtors, a lot of times think it's some flowery language that makes somebody pick up the phone and that's a call to action. And it's not. It's really about building brand so that when a life event happens and they are ready to buy or sell a home, you are the brand recall that they have. You are the trusted person that has educated and delivered value to them along the way. And we do that through stories. Stories have been around for thousands and thousands of years, right? And This basic formula is, the formula for all writers to write books and do movies. And I think he uses the example of Star Wars and Luke Skywalker, who meets his guide. Luke Skywalker is the character. Too many times in real estate, we want to be the hero. Yes. And we want to have been the one that sold that house in 72 hours and got the seller top price. And yes, our experience helps the seller do that. But if agents will make the shift, the mental mindset shift that the client is the hero and we are simply the guide that helps them get there, you will establish a longer term relationship with that client versus the one-off. Right?
Yes.
The one transaction. So in this scenario, and talking about buyers, really thinking about and putting yourself in the place of that character. So buyers today, right, they're faced with a problem and they need a guide who is us, who understands their fear. And their fear comes around, is this the right time to be buying a home? Our price is going to go down. That's the number one question we're getting right now. Our price is going to go down. Should we wait to buy a house? And that's a conversation around, the balance between interest rates and pricing, which some buyers don't think about that.
Yes.
If interest rates go up and prices come down, do you still have the same payment? Meanwhile, what are you wasting in rent and not getting any tax benefits from? So helping them to understand and being the guide that educates them will help them to overcome their own fear. It's not for us to make everyone's world perfect, and it's not for us to solve everyone's problems, but if we can guide them down a path to find answers, they will actually alleviate their own fears and overcome those fears of buying. And right now, that has to do with a lot of education. Obviously, COVID has presented external factors in the market that we've never had to deal with before. And
Absolutely.
people are buying and moving and selling for all kinds of different reasons that we've never been faced with before. So, just starting with the simple formula of the character, the problem, the fear, and then putting ourselves in their shoes, that what are we hearing buyers say? If you're in the trenches dealing with buyers every day, what questions are they asking? And then how can you turn that into a video, a blog post, a brochure, a checklist? How can you develop educational content and tell a story, maybe of a buyer who had this experience, right? And going back to the feel, felt, found formula, right? We had a buyer, they felt the same way, and here's what they found.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people like reviews, right?
Yes.
They like reviews because they're like, oh, I have this fear that I might be overpaying for this misting system that I'm about to put on my patio in Palm Springs.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see what the reviews are with this company. Oh, I see they felt the same way, and here's what they found. So being able to do that in our marketing is really important as well, to relate to and meet the client where they are at. And buyers and sellers are in very different places right now.
Yeah, definitely. Mary, let me just double down on a couple points that you made there, right? So, if you look at sort of step 1, 2, and 3 on this, right, the character we've talked about, they have a problem. In my opinion, and you think you touched on this, is this speaks to getting to a level of deep empathy and actually taking the time to think about this, to be thoughtful, to write down everything that you've learned. When you get into this sort of methodology more deeply, we're not going to go this deep today, right? Is that problem identification takes multiple forms. You have this classic villain, as they call it, just like in any, good movie. And that villain leaves the individual, the buyer or the seller, with certain feelings, right? They have a need. I want to buy a house, but they're left feeling really uncertain about that. And so that's sort of a nuance at it. But what that speaks to when they meet the guide in this story, that's step 3 here that Mary was talking about, that's meeting you, is that there's really 2 sort of subcomponents to that. There's the empathy, right? They need to know that you understand what they're going through. And that has to come through. And I think Mary gave some good ideas there. And the other piece, of course, is just the authority. And that authority, Mary, is what we just talked about, right? We established authority for you at the outset of this show. I said, Inman, named you most influential, blah, 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 marketing, top. I didn't even name all the things, actually, right? You asked me not to. But that speaks to authority. Who are you, Mary, to be my guide, right? What makes you qualified to be my guide? And so as your career builds, you get some of those accolades, and those things help. And by the way, awards are just one way. If you don't have those awards yet, there are other ways for you to establish your authority. And when you talk about making videos and reviews and all of that, Mary, that's another way to establish authority. So that takes us right there into that 3rd step where they say, okay, Mary, you get to be my guide, right? You're going to take me from being an imperfect hero to the hero of this story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the more that we can put ourselves out there, we've never had this type of opportunity before in real estate, to have our own show and speak to the consumer as if we were on TV and deliver information, be the real estate news channel, the market leader, the local expert, be the mayor of your town when it comes to real estate. If somebody has watched you put out educational video after educational video and market update after market update, and you really talk to, great, this big data is fabulous. What does it mean for you? What does it mean for you as a buyer? What does it mean for you as a seller? With 70% of communication being body language, we've never had this opportunity before. This is a marketer's dream. To be able to just build that foundation. People will begin to know, like, and trust you just from watching you. And then when you have a layered approach of how you're communicating with people, whether that be, video, blog post, Facebook posting, print, whatever it is, email, all of those things add up to a layered effect that creates that authority that you're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, go ahead. Sorry, what?
It's a lot of work.
It actually, Mary, thank you for making that thought crossed my. It is a lot of work, right? It is a lot of work because, how many times have you heard, Mary, and probably this is, maybe not to you, right? This happens to a lot of people, right? Where there's somebody in your sphere, maybe even in your family. They're like, "Oh, I'm buying a house," and you're like, and they're working with somebody else, and you're like, "What? Like, I'm right here. Like, how do you not know that you're supposed to call me?" It's really hard to stay top of mind. It takes a lot of hard work, I guess, is the honest truth, right? There's no getting around that, is there? No,
and that's honestly why you hear all of this talk of the super team in real estate, because when I first got into real estate 16 years ago, I chose to run a geographic farm-based business. I looked at, and people can run all kinds of different farms. You can run a demographical farm. You can run a categorical farm. I chose to do a geographic farm. And direct mail was really the only way, and the newspaper, to communicate with that farm, other than meeting them in person at open houses, attending events, and becoming the mayor of your town. But mostly that was direct mail, look at me, look at me, look at me. And real estate is a very ego-driven profession, whereas you get caught up in being the hero. And when I went from being an independent agent to being a independent brokerage owner, I really had to take a step back and put my marketing hat on and look at how we were going to build that story brand. But I think that's why you'll see a lot of people, it is a lot of work. I think people, HGTV and Bravo haven't helped our industry.
Not one bit. Not one bit.
It looks so simple. I'm only showing you 3 houses and you have to pick one, and I do all of my negotiation over the phone.
Mary, can I just make a funny anecdote there? I saw a post on a realtor forum over the weekend, and this agent was holding an open house, and there's a couple that came in, and the couple came in, and they looked at the house, and they came downstairs, and they say, okay, to the agent, they said, "Can you step outside while we talk about this?" Oh. And they're like, "Well, wait, haven't you seen TV? Like, that's how it works on TV." I just got a kick out of that. Thought it was pretty funny.
I'll just be over here, talk amongst yourselves.
Exactly.
I'll just step out. Would you also like to spend the night and make dinner?
Yeah, exactly. I'll bring you some food, whatever you need.
You can see how it really feels to live here.
Yeah.
That would be a show, right?
It absolutely would.
Yeah. But I think that's why you'll see, some of this can be overwhelming for people. And that's why people join teams, because agents are great salespeople.
Yeah.
And, sometimes the process is becoming so commoditized that, look, I just want to show houses and write offers, and I just want to do this part of the process. Great. Being on a team is fabulous.
Yes.
If you want to be an independent agent and build your brand, know that you have to have plans. You have to, follow these basic sort of formulas and then develop marketing plans with budgets that get executed. Otherwise, that's why agents have a feast or famine business, right? Because they do the
Absolutely.
marketing, they have an escrow, and then that escrow closes.
And then they start marketing again, whatever that means to them, right? And
Right?
there's a lead time on that, right? This stuff doesn't
Yeah.
happen overnight, clearly.
So taking the time, I know a lot of agents say to me, but Mary, I don't have time. You have to take the time to sit, do things like this, really think about, storyboard it out on a whiteboard, get a notebook, go rent a hotel room for a weekend, and really put time. We're so reactionary. We carry computers around. We're constantly getting text and email and that the ability to be creative is something that I personally have to work on. I have to work on blocking time and getting into a creative space in order to ask myself the question, go through the exercises, and storyboard this out. This isn't something that just you get to do in like 10 seconds.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Mary, real quick, if we go back to now kind of the next step in this, right? So we've talked about the character, they have a problem, they meet a guide. That's all of you out there. You are the guide, not the hero, okay? The next step is that you give them a plan that calls them to action, right? So you have to give them a plan. So, Mary, this is a really important one, and I'm sure you could probably talk for a long time about this, because I know for a fact that you've taken a lot of time to create the materials that talk about the plan. But talk about this, because you now that they've said yes to you have to give them a plan that moves them forward. So talk a little bit about how you think about the plan.
So I think a lot of the buyer fear, because we're talking about buyers right now, I think a lot of the buyer fear that when you help them lay out and understand the buying process, especially millennials, right? Millennials want to know everything, and they're going to research something to death to understand it before they take action. So the more you can put out content related to, what's it like to buy a home with a VA loan? If you go and you Google how to buy a home in your area, if you Google what are property taxes in your area, anything that is a how-to, and Google's going to tell you here are the top things that people in your area Google about that subject. How to buy a home with a VA loan in San Diego. How, what, why are property taxes this? What is Melrose? Is California an attorney state, or is it a title and escrow state? What does that mean? What does that mean to me? The more you can create content around those questions, that will help the buyer develop a plan that then they want to step into action. And because you are the one that has guided them from information gathering to consideration, that now when they're at the bottom of the funnel to make a decision, they are now ready to take action, and you are the guide that's going to help them take that action because you have established authority and you have also been the one that has educated them. You are naturally now going to be the one that they want to take that action with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And, every time we talk, Mary, you give me something I latch onto, right? So last time we talked, you in the context of COVID and all of that, you said we're all in the same storm, we're not all in the same boat. And that really resonated with me. The one from today now that I get to remember and use is this idea of being the mayor of your own X, right? And I think that's really interesting, right? Because, thinking about, for those that are listening right now, being the mayor of your own family, your own sphere, if that's 100 people or 1,000 people, of a market, right? Mark Choi, a good friend of ours, was on, became the #2 salesperson in condo salesperson all of San Francisco, and he was the mayor of Soma, that area, right?
Yeah.
So really defining what that is, and this process, this building the story brand, helps you identify that. But I really like that idea, Mary, and couple that with what you said, which is we all get to be our own broadcast networks, right? This show that you're on right now came about during COVID, right? Because I'm sitting here at home, and the tools and technologies are available, and I'm shooting this on my cell phone. It's accessible, I think, to most people, and you just have to start doing it. So I just think those are really interesting concepts for us to stay on.
Yeah, realtors get too caught up in, ooh, what camera are you using, and what gimbal, and
Hey, I did a gimbal video. Everyone should be using a gimbal. Just saying, Mary. I'm just kidding.
I think we get so caught up in the what and constantly getting ready to get ready, right? The number one question I get asked is, what CRM do you use?
Right.
Like, what's the best CRM? The best CRM is the one that you're already paying for that you're not using.
Right, exactly.
That's the best CRM.
Right. If you don't use it, it doesn't matter what it is. And I couldn't agree with you more. This happens all the time. People get caught up in the tech and the gadgets, and they want it to be perfect. And this show has been anything but perfect. You just have to start doing it, right? Like, that's what it takes. Yeah.
I had to get over I need a neck lift. I had to get over it. Just get over it. This is what I look like. Like, this runs in my family. It's hereditary. Like, okay, this is what I look like.
I didn't even notice, just so we're clear.
But, imperfect action will outperform perfect all day long.
All day long.
The more you can get out there and get in front of the buyer, and, just taking this basic formula, and this is what I used to develop, our current marketing plan that's getting ready to launch, when it talks about selling, because never before has this formula been more important than today in dealing with homeowners and sellers being in the positions that they are in. Because when we talked last time about we're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat, has never been more relevant in this formula, because every seller, every household is experiencing something new. There's so much uncertainty, right? And so our character, our seller in this story that we're creating, our character is experiencing fears that, maybe they've lost a job. Maybe one of their family members actually got COVID. Maybe a family member passed away from COVID. They have to relocate to get a new job. They have to downsize so that one of them can stay home now because their children have to be homeschooled. Or they need a bigger house because they have to move in family members to help care for the kids that have to be homeschooled. There's so much happening behind closed doors, and there's so much fear in uncertain times that now more than ever, controlling the narrative, controlling the message, and following this formula as it relates to our current clients, that equity gives people choice. No longer are we talking about what is your home worth. That's irrelevant. How much equity do you have? And equity gives people choice. So following this story brand formula with today's sellers, they're faced with big problems and have a lot of fears. And being able to give them options, that is the plan. More than ever, homeowners and sellers need certainty in uncertain time. And being able to offer them options is where we now move from being a salesperson into being an advisor. And letting them be the hero of how this story of COVID is going to play out for them. We are just the guide to deliver the options and help execute. And so, I just keep going back to this formula because it's so simple. Because people ask me,
it really is. I'm pulling the formula up again. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. People ask me all the time, Mary, what postcard should I send out? It's not about one postcard that's going to build a brand story. It is about an entire storytelling campaign that you have developed that lets people see, oh, when I have that need, they have the answer, which is what fuels sales, right? I cracked my screen. I need to go get it repaired.
Yes.
That's going to control where I go spend my dollar. Am I going to go to the one over here in San Marcos, or am I going to call the people that come to my house and do, contactless in their little truck? What am I going to do, right? Mm-hmm. But the need is now controlling where I spend my dollar. And that's the same with consumers, especially sellers. We have to help them fulfill the needs that they have. Is that they need speed, convenience, and certainty, and they need to sell their home immediately without hassle.
Yes.
So do they need an instant offer option? Do you have an instant offer option?
Yes.
And then is it, we need to maximize our equity. We had a seller recently where we helped them maximize an additional $100,000 in equity because they elected to invest $12,000 into fixing up their home. So here's what the market, it looks like it'll bear based on, how we're going to price, package, position, and place your home in the market. But if you were willing to do these things, what does an extra $100,000 in equity do for someone?
It's tremendous.
That gives them a lot of choice.
Yes, it does.
So, or is the option that, hey, you just need to refinance. I'm sitting here looking that you're currently at a 4.25% interest rate. What would just refinancing, let's jump on a strategy session with my lender. What would just refinancing do for your family?
Yeah.
Would that allow you to keep your home right now? For $500, some people don't even realize that interest rates are the lowest they've been. We just had a VA member get 2.25 on a 30-year.
2.25? Jeez.
2.25, no money down on a 30-year fixed rate loan.
Oh my goodness. That's insane. I mean, that's unprecedented, right?
No down payment.
Yeah.
But in a refi situation, if you went from a 4.25 to a 2.75, that could be the difference between being able to hire outside tutors to help your kids with this homeschooling issue, keeping your home, maybe a spouse not having to work. I mean, who knows what these
It's massive. Yeah, it's massive. And I think, Mary, what you're speaking about now is really important, right? Which is you're talking about, as again, the guide, really helping your customers become successful, whatever that means, right? And success might mean a transaction, but success might not mean a transaction right now, and it might mean a transaction down the road. And, just going back to put kind of a pin on this, the end of this journey here is that you give them a plan, you call them to action, and that the goal here is for that to end in success, right? Not failure. Success, not failure. That is your one job, right? As a guide, is to make sure that this imperfect hero, as it's called in this methodology, makes the transformation and becomes a homeowner or a home seller and so on and so forth. That is the goal, and your role in that is to be a guide, pure and simple. And that, again, that outcome could mean not a transaction, it could mean a refinance, but that's the role that you play, and understanding that is key.
Or maybe they can keep the property and they just need to rent it out because they want to come back to San Diego one day, but they're going to go take this job over here for a couple of years, but they're afraid they won't be able to buy back in if they sell it. If you can deliver all of these options and become the option broker versus, oh, I have to go here for this option, and then I got to talk to this person about this option, and then I got to talk to this person. If you can, get to the table first, and that's what marketing does. It gets you to the table first. If you can get to the table first, deliver all of the options, be the guide, so that no matter how you end up at that point in the process, they are going to end up in success. And whatever that means for them, refinancing, renting it, selling it, needing to sell it so fast, they take the investor option. Whatever that is, when you have options, look, every boxer goes in the ring with a plan. This is our plan for the fight. We're going to do this in the first round, this in the second round. But a fighter, a boxer, has to change that plan based on the opponent, right? Just like in football. You go in with a plan, but based on how the defense is reacting to you, you have to make a call on the field.
Absolutely.
And that's what our sellers are and our buyers are experiencing right now. The kind of caveat, if they had a little ding, 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 a little dotted line out to another circle, it would be having options. The more options you can give to someone at that critical point in the formula will allow them to always have success. If you get to that point in the formula and all you have is one option for them, and that's to go to market, as we traditionally know going to market means, and here's what a CMA says your house will sell for.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
that is the only option, they could possibly end up in tragedy.
Right. They absolutely could. They absolutely could. Mary, I want to just double down on one last point, and then we can wrap up here for today. This has been awesome. Which is,
time has gone so fast.
I know, it goes by so fast. Honestly, we could talk forever.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned this a few weeks ago when you were on, right? So, you talk about revisiting this story brand exercise maybe once a year by default, and right now, reason to do it more often. When you talk about this, like the has a problem stage, I think what's really important here is that as an agent, you absolutely cannot be going to your customers, potential customers, with the same message that you did 4 or 5 or 6 months ago. You absolutely cannot, right? Okay, it's time to go. Do you want to sell your house? All of the things that Mary mentioned there, all of the factors. Maybe you have kids that are going to be homeschooled now because of your school district, or you need extra space, or it's work from home and you need the office, or you have parents, or what, so on and so forth. All of these reasons. The narrative, the problem that your buyers or sellers have has changed fundamentally from what it was. And making sure that you adapt your message to that speaks to empathy, which is key to their decision to hire you. If they don't believe you understand them, they are not going to hire you. Would you agree with that, Mary? Does that make sense?
1000%. And there's no way that we can know what's happening in their life behind closed doors. We have to show up with empathy, like you said. We must come to the table with just the ability to listen. And these are no longer listing presentations. We are not there to sell someone on choosing us to list their home. This kind of goes back to 2006, 2007, when I started doing short sales. Those were very consultative presentations, because whether it be, they'd gotten themselves in over their heads, they had used their home as an ATM and now they couldn't afford it. They lost a job, they had medical, their business went under and they pulled money out of their house to keep it going and now they can't afford it, or whatever it is. They were being relocated and the equity wasn't there in their home and the market wouldn't give them enough to pay it off. These were consultative sessions. And that's what we are back to. We are back to having consultative sessions with people, because there are so many different things that are happening in their lives. And the one thing I will say to agents is you have to constantly ask yourself, are you truly listening to your clients, or are you just waiting to talk?
Yeah.
When you are in that listing consultation with people, are you truly listening to what they're saying and what their fears are? Or are you just waiting to talk and tell them how great you are and what your company has done and look at our track record of success? And this is our 102-point marketing plan. No one gives a shit.
Yeah.
They want to know, how are you going to help them solve your problem? And if your marketing ahead of time speaks to that by following the story brand methodology, they will already know that you're coming to the table with solutions.
Yeah. Well said. Well said, Mary. So I mentioned this before, but on the screen right now there's a website that they have called mystorybrand.com. Is actually, you can sign up for a free account. I believe it's still free, at least it used to be, and you can actually create your story brand. It's worth reading the book. It's absolutely worth going through that exercise. Mary, like you said, 40 minutes just blew by. I don't know how that happened. I feel like we just got started. But Mary, thank you for your time and your wisdom and your willingness to share these ideas with all of our agents out there. It's tremendously helpful, and I'm deeply appreciative of you for that.
Thank you for having me. I hope everyone got one little nugget that they can take away today and implement in their business. And thank you so, so much again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm sure we're going to have you back real soon here. All right, Mary, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, that was fantastic, right? I think Mary is tremendously credible, super high energy, super thoughtful, super smart about all of these things, and there's a lot there to learn from. We'll have links to the books, to the website, to Mary's website in the comments. All of that stuff will be there for you. I love this idea of becoming the mayor. That's a great mindset. I love this. So, be the mayor of your own whatever. It could be 100 people, it could be 1,000 people, it could be a state, it could be a city, it could be anything. But the point there is that you need people to remember who you are, and that means that you have to be out in front of them. Your messaging has to be on point, which means you have to be thoughtful about it, and you have to have a marketing plan that leads ahead of seeding these ideas and building your brand. So I think that's tremendous. Until tomorrow, be safe, be healthy, be happy, and we'll see you soon.